Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a landmark decision that will be studied for generations, the United States Supreme Court has struck down the sweeping tariff policies enacted by former President Donald Trump, sending shockwaves through the highest levels of government, business, and international diplomacy. The justices declared these tariffs an unconstitutional overreach of executive power, setting a powerful precedent that redefines the limits of presidential authority in matters of economic policy. This ruling dismantles a key pillar of Trump's economic agenda, unraveling years of aggressive trade maneuvering, and throws the future of international commerce and global supply chains into profound uncertainty. For American exporters and importers, the ground has shifted overnight. Markets around the world reacted with immediate turmoil. Investors scrambled to reassess their positions. As the world now faces a vacuum in U.S. trade policy, the Dow Jones plummeted in early trading, while global exchanges echoed the volatility. For years, nations have navigated a volatile landscape, shaped by these tariffs. Industries adapted, supply chains rerouted, and diplomatic relations strained under the weight of uncertainty. Now, with the sudden reversal, governments and corporations are left scrambling to understand the new rules of engagement. Allies and adversaries alike are being forced to recalibrate their strategies. Trade negotiators are returning to the table, world leaders are holding emergency meetings, and businesses are urgently reviewing contracts and supply agreements. Legal scholars and economists are already debating the broader implications. Does this decision signal a new era of judicial oversight over economic policy? Or will it spark a political battle over who truly controls America's role in the global economy? The decision challenges the very notion of how much economic power a single leader can wield in a globalized world, raising urgent questions about checks and balances in a time of rapid change. Tonight, we'll explore the background of this historic case, the immediate impacts on markets and everyday lives, and what it means for the future of global trade, American workers, and the balance of power in Washington. The story is far from over. In many ways, it has just begun. The world is watching, and the next chapter in this unfolding drama will shape the global order for years to come. To grasp today's ruling, we must revisit the origins of Trump's America First tariffs. Trump argued that unfair trade deals and practices, especially by China, were hollowing out U.S. manufacturing, so he imposed tariffs to protect American industries. The legal basis was the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, EPA, allowing the president to regulate commerce during national emergencies. Trump declared multiple emergencies, using them to justify broad tariffs, a sharp break from decades of free trade consensus. Supporters credited the tariffs with reviving key sectors and claimed trillions in new investment, while critics argued they raised prices for Americans and disrupted supply chains. This fundamental disagreement set the stage for a bitter legal battle. That conflict would ultimately reach the Supreme Court. The legal fight centered on the separation of powers. Does the president have the authority to impose sweeping tariffs without Congress? Plaintiffs, including small businesses, argued tariffs are taxes, powers reserved for Congress. They claimed IEEPA was never meant for long-term economic protectionism. Lower courts sided with the challengers, ruling Trump exceeded his authority. The defense argued the president needs flexibility to act in emergencies, but critics said Congress never intended to delegate such sweeping power. The Supreme Court was asked, where does presidential power end and congressional authority begin? The answer would reshape the balance of power in Washington. On October 22, 2025, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Trump's use of IEEPA to impose broad long-term tariffs exceeded presidential authority. The majority opinion by Chief Justice Roberts emphasized that only Congress can overhaul trade policy or impose new taxes. The court drew a clear line. Targeted temporary measures are allowed, but sweeping, indefinite tariffs are not. The ruling is a victory for small businesses and a blow to Trump, who called it a politically motivated attack. The decision sets a precedent limiting future presidents' use of emergency powers for economic policy. Unwinding the tariffs will be complex, but the legal authority is now gone. A new chapter in U.S. trade and constitutional law begins. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves through global markets, with stocks plunging dramatically. Investors around the world were caught off guard, leading to a frantic sell-off that saw billions wiped off the value of major indices. Currencies fluctuated wildly as investors scrambled to assess the fallout. The uncertainty led to a flight to safe haven assets, with gold prices spiking and government bonds seeing increased demand. For consumers, the end of tariffs could mean lower prices on everyday goods, from groceries to electronics. This potential relief, however, may take time to materialize as supply chains adjust and retailers recalibrate their pricing strategies. Though relief may take time, the long-term benefits could be significant, potentially boosting consumer spending and driving economic growth. Domestic industries that benefited from protection now face renewed foreign competition. This shift raises fears of job losses and factory closures, particularly in sectors that have struggled to compete globally. The specter of factory closures looms large, with many workers anxious about their future. The transition could be painful for communities reliant on these industries. The government and businesses must now untangle years of tariff-driven supply chain changes. This process is both costly and complex, requiring significant investment and strategic planning. A costly and complex process. The reconfiguration of supply chains will demand collaboration across multiple sectors, from logistics to manufacturing. The fate of billions in collected duties is uncertain. Governments may face legal battles over refunds, adding another layer of complexity to the financial landscape. With potential legal battles over refunds, the judicial system could be inundated with cases, further straining resources. Some economists predict lower inflation and greater efficiency as markets adjust to the new reality. They argue that the removal of tariffs will lead to a more competitive and dynamic economy, while others warn of painful adjustments for industries that relied on tariffs. The debate among economists highlights the uncertainty and varied impacts of this policy shift. The claim of a manufacturing renaissance is now in question. Industries that once thrived under protectionist policies must now adapt or face decline. The sudden policy shift could slow the economy in the short term. Businesses and consumers alike will need time to adjust to the new economic landscape. Even as it promises long-term gains for consumers, the immediate effects may include market volatility and economic uncertainty. The true impact will unfold in the months ahead. As the dust settles, the global economy will begin to reveal the winners and losers of this monumental shift. The ruling has deepened partisan divides in Washington. Democrats and moderate Republicans see it as a restoration of congressional authority and a return to constitutional norms. Trump and his supporters view it as a betrayal and a blow to the America First movement, fueling claims of judicial activism. The decision forces Congress and the administration to quickly craft a new trade policy amid fierce political debate. The path forward is uncertain, with sharp disagreements over free trade versus protectionism. The ruling shifts power back to Congress, but whether lawmakers can act decisively remains to be seen. The political aftershocks will shape U.S. policy for years. The Supreme Court's decision has real consequences for Americans everywhere. Small business owners like Maria Flores, who struggled under tariffs, now see hope for survival and growth. Meanwhile, workers in industries revived by tariffs fear renewed competition and job losses. The ruling sharpens the divide between import-reliant businesses and domestic manufacturers. For families, the end of tariffs could mean lower prices on everyday goods, but relief may be slow to arrive. Communities that thrived under protectionism now face uncertainty, while others hope for financial relief. The story of tariffs is a tale of two Americas, each with much at stake. The social fabric is stretched as the nation adjusts to a new economic reality. The human cost, on both sides, is profound. Experts are divided on the Supreme Court's decision. Free market advocates hail it as a defense of constitutional order and a rejection of arbitrary executive power. They argue tariffs hurt consumers, disrupt supply chains, and ultimately cost more jobs than they save. For them, the ruling is a step toward a more efficient, open economy. Supporters of tariffs, however, warn the court has stripped the presidency of a vital tool for protecting national and economic security. They credit tariffs with reviving key industries and reducing dependence on foreign supply chains. Critics fear the ruling leaves the U.S. vulnerable in a world of strategic economic competition. The debate over America's trade future is far from settled. The Supreme Court's decision marks a pivotal moment in American history, one that will shape the nation's role on the global stage for years to come. This ruling is not just a legal milestone, it's a signal that the United States is entering a new era of uncertainty and opportunity. The balance of power at home is shifting as lawmakers and citizens alike grapple with the implications of this landmark judgment. By striking down the tariffs, the court has forced a national conversation about the future of U.S. trade policy. Questions abound. How will American businesses adapt? What new alliances or rivalries might emerge on the world stage? Policymakers must now manage economic disruption and support affected workers, requiring rare, bipartisan cooperation. The stakes are high, as families, industries, and entire communities look to Washington for leadership and reassurance. The world is watching closely, waiting to see if the U.S. can forge a new, coherent trade strategy that balances domestic needs with international responsibilities. Allies and competitors alike are recalibrating their expectations. Will America rise to the challenge, or will it descend into political gridlock and partisan conflict? The choices made in the coming months will echo for generations. The ruling reaffirms a fundamental principle: no branch of government holds absolute power. Checks and balances remain at the heart of the American system, ensuring that no single entity can dictate the nation's future alone. The future of trade policy now lies with Congress, which must navigate competing interests and find common ground in a deeply divided political landscape. But the responsibility doesn't end there. It also rests with the American people. Stay informed, engage with your representatives, and participate in the democratic process. Your voice matters now more than ever. Whether through voting, advocacy, or public dialogue, every citizen has a role to play in shaping the nation's path forward. The next chapter in America's economic story is just beginning, and its outcome will be written by all of us together.